Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Womelsdorf. I'm the Vice President of Product Development for NovaSpace, and I'm joined today by Perry Waters, our Vice President of Operations. And we're here to talk with you all about gaining entry into the space industry. So kind of one thing that we've recognized based on both of our backgrounds is that initially when you're trying to gain entry into the industry, you think you might need an advanced technical degree, like an engineering degree or something like that, or be a really skilled technician. But what Perry and I have found in our kind of coming up in the industry is that that's simply not the case. So Perry, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then we'll dive into this interview and kind of give folks a better understanding of you don't need to be a rocket scientist to get involved in the industry.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff mentioned, I'm Perry Waters, Vice President of Operations for NovaSpace, and my background was essentially one education-wise in the social sciences. I didn't have a technical stuff, never was really particularly good in math or science. And then ultimately, when I was in the military, I was thrusted into a space job, unknowingly to me. And so I had to basically start finding out about space so I could do my job. And fortunately enough, the Marine Corps sent me to a couple of space courses, down in Colorado Springs. And that's basically how I was essentially introduced to space. And I found out through that, it's like, wow, this is really eye-opening experience. And then I really found out through how those professors taught the material that really anyone could understand this stuff and do it and be a contributing member to the space industry, whether you're with the government or you're in the private industry itself.
You mentioned you don't have a technical degree or a degree that's typically associated with folks in the space industry. Have you ever... Has there ever been an example of a time where you found yourself having to communicate with someone who does have that super technical background, and essentially like you being able to hold your own in that conversation because of the background or the education that you've received?
No, actually, yeah, thanks. Good question. It happens all the time, whether I'm talking on phone with someone about giving them a demo or basically the products that we can offer, or we're down at a conference or the symposium. I find myself often talking to these, what I would call highly technical individuals. And I'm able to essentially hold my own, whether I'm talking about, satellites, we're talking about launch and propulsion launch. We're talking about, the things, bus payloads, things like that. I'm able to essentially have that conversation. I know enough about it. Now, again, I don't have their technical understanding of it, but we at least can have a conversation where we're having an effective one, if that makes sense. So, I've noticed I visited companies doing kind of some road shows and some regional shows. And I've noticed I've sat down with some of their so-called technical experts, and they don't know what you think they might know. I found myself actually knowing more about the basic stuff that they don't know. So that's been kind of an eye-opening thing, but that just kind of proves to you how this course, the NovaSpace Professional course, really can develop you and having a general understanding of things and how you can apply it in the real world.
Yeah, those are all great points. I mean, I think folks find themselves, a common issue in the industry is they find themselves stovepiped in a particular area of expertise. So they might be extreme technical experts on a certain subject, but they don't necessarily know how their subject affects the industry writ large. So yeah, being that generalist is actually super valuable in the space industry right now as it's growing. When did you realize just how intertwined space capabilities are in our everyday lives and jobs, and essentially realize how valuable it is to be a generalist in the industry?
Well, I first realized it, of course, when I went down those courses, and I came back and realized just how dependent the DoD federal government is upon space, how the different services in the military rely heavily upon space, and how when you take away space, how limited we really are from talking to basically moving and communicating type things, how we are seriously limited when you do remove that aspect of space. And so, and then I started looking at the civilian side of it and started looking like, my gosh, our cell phones, there's GPS enabled on these things. Basically, you kind of want to call it, it's really a space subsystem. And, in the future, our cell phones are essentially going to be space enabled devices that you're going to have that internet type quality stuff, that no longer cell phone towers will really be the primary means. It'll be kind of little satellites in LEO that are basically helping these things communicate and talk to one another. So understanding those general things, how space works and what we do to rely on it, will really help people, again, have that broad, good, general understanding. They can really link in to certain things that other people, if they're stovepipe in the technical aspects, may not quite understand. And again, I found that out time and time again, talking with certain professionals within the industry.
Yeah. So what were some of the challenges that you faced during your getting your education? So I know we've both been in the industry for years, and to get to the point that we're at, what were some of the challenges that you found as you were receiving that education?
Well, I mean, first is kind of getting over the shock, or I always call it the misnomer that, you don't need a highly technical, space engineering, astrophysics degree to be effective in this industry. Getting over that hurdle and hump, I realized that was probably the first thing that I realized, that I can converse. I mean, I work with astrophysicists, aerospace systems engineers, and again, I can talk and understand things, and I don't have that, again, highly technical background that they did. So that was just getting over that hump was probably the biggest one. And then I found out, trying to find out these individuals that know how to explain space well, and kind of read their books, whether it's, Dr. Jerry John Sellers or somebody like that, reading their materials that know how to really explain stuff that can easily apply it into simple terms and understand it. That's what I found, getting the challenges over, because some of the stuff is very technical. I mean, I start reading, I'm like, okay, they lost me here. I simply don't have the background to understand that, but I can find certain, publications, whatnot, that I can read on. Okay, now I can understand the way they explain it. So that was my, initial challenge, just getting over the shock of not having a technical degree, but then of course finding those references that have it better understand to a layperson like me, initially a layperson, that now I can understand and can effectively communicate.
Yeah, that's a great point that you brought up. So one thing that I noticed in my time coming, especially through the DoD education, is that usually all the courses that you go through are taught to kind of the middle ground as far as the student population goes. So you're really either playing catch up, or you're not interested in the subject that's being covered. So it's very kind of hard to internalize a lot of the material unless you spend repetitively a lot of time covering that material. So kind of getting back to what we talked about earlier, taking the space professional course, our main goal is to create generalists. So you take this course, you get that base level knowledge, that rock solid foundation, and then you can continue your career and expand your knowledge based on your interests. How do you think taking the Nova Space professional course can benefit someone who is either trying to gain entry into the industry, is already in the industry, but maybe looking to explore different subjects? Could you kind of elaborate on that and how our course can benefit folks?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, it's kind of like a skill set, certain knowledge things. You can't remember everything about it, but the basics you sometimes can forget. I mean, we're talking to one of the professors that taught at a European university for 10 plus years. He couldn't answer some of the questions correctly. And he tried to rebut them. It's like, no, this is simple stuff that you just have forgotten. So this is what it kind of dials you back to zero, kind of some reset training for some of those professionals that have been in it for a long time, may think they have a real good general understanding, but may have forgotten a few things. So that group of people certainly can help. Refresher, call it that. And then of course, the people that, like the graduates that are, new to the aerospace industry, it helps them ultimately communicate. I remember talking with the professor. He was having some problems. Some of his students, they were aerospace engineering graduates, get jobs. And he's found out that essentially, they couldn't converse and talk about space. They knew about the technical stuff. They just couldn't relate it to conversation and know how to talk to certain individuals. And so he believed this course was going to help them bridge that gap of understanding how to communicate up and down the industry's chain. And then if someone is looking to get into it, it'll open your eyes to everything. It will open up to understanding about how you could fit into the industry, about, good base knowledge about those various topics we cover. And it basically gives you the confidence, like I like to tell people, education, the way it's done properly, this is a motivating platform of how it's delivered to really capture you into wanting to do this and getting involved. And it will kind of motivate you because it gives you that confidence that you have that good understanding, and you can feel like going forward to the job application or interview that you can essentially get a job in the space industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And one great thing that we offer at Nova Space is, depending on your purchasing method, obviously, but for like individuals that purchase the professional course, you have access to that course for lifetime. So it's not just like a lot of our other competitors. They're offering 30-day access to the course material. So click through it. It's not super effective learning. And then you kind of just dump all the information that you receive. What we're trying to create is a community where you're coming back to engage with the material, to learn new things, to refresh yourself so that you're staying competitive out there in the job market. Who do you think, so we've already kind of talked to this a little bit as well, but could you expand a little bit on who would benefit from taking our professional course?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have different groups that we kind of, I would think, cater to in some ways. Number one, it's those people that are probably recent graduates from universities with the technical engineering degrees. I think that group right there, it'll greatly benefit them because, even we're finding out some of these space programs really don't cover some of the topics that are germane to the industry. That's why we've had industry professionals that have kind of develop our curriculum that have been in the government industry, private industry, academia, that kind of develop, this is what they need to know. We've had it verified by, people that are, been in long time in the industry. So, that group, it really targets. But again, it's also for those individuals that have already been in the industry that are really kind of stovepiped. They may know one particular sphere of the space side. Say it's just, launch and propulsion. They don't really understand about the satellite side or the LEO, the communications piece of it. And so that can open up their aperture a bit to understanding the whole thing so they can kind of tie the pieces together and kind of what their piece does and how it fits into the other areas around them. And then, of course, it's the group that, that once again knows nothing about space. And again, this is the group that I think kind of you and I come from. And these are the ones that I say, don't be shy, don't be afraid, do it. It will, I hate to say it, the cliche, it'll change your life. If you really are serious about it and want to get involved in the space industry, because right now we just simply cannot fill the jobs with the amount of openings are out there with good qualified people. And that's what this course is ultimately going to do, the credentialing side of it, but ultimately the certification is going to offer in the future. And that's where these people can essentially get ahead and start a new career and really propel themselves upward.
Yeah, absolutely. In one of our conversations before, we were talking about just the fact that as the industry grows, you're going to need essentially every profession that you have here on Earth in space or with some kind of space flavor. So yeah, the sooner you can get your knowledge underneath you and then pursue your passions, you can definitely carve out your niche in the industry by becoming a generalist here.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but one thing I like individuals like me, from the military, if they don't have a space background, fine, but whatever you bring to the table, whatever industry you come from, you're able to apply it because whatever happens on Earth is ultimately going to be happening up in space. And we always talk about this. I mean, my operations background, understanding logistics, understanding budgeting and finance, those type and planning. Oh man, planning is huge.
Oh yeah.
These are all skill sets that are needed regardless of what industry you come from. It all is applied in the space industry right now. And, we need lawyers, we need, accountants, we need people that understand finance and budgeting side. So, that's ultimately is what we're looking for. Any job that you think is in the industry, it's going to be applied and we need it inside the space industry as well.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more, please consider checking out the Space Professional course. Everything that we do is challenge-based. It's interactive. So we try to simulate real-world problems that you'd be encountering out in the industry to just help you retain that knowledge and make it more engaging and fun, which helps with retention. So Perry, thanks for joining me and sharing your thoughts on this topic. It was a pleasure talking to you as always. And thanks everybody.
Take care. Thank you.